This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk over a mixed week at Manchester United. If you're watching live, please like and subscribe. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your questions and comments in. And if you're watching the replay, do say hello. Feel free to comment. We do reply to those. If you're listening back on the audio podcast as well, be sure to subscribe and leave a review on the platform you're listening on. Paul, it's a funny week this week, United. There are two results that we're going to be talking about. Real Sociedad and Aston Villa. One looks like a loss, and one felt like a loss, even though we won. Lost Paul's screen for a minute. I'm sure Paul will come back.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. Got it back.
Yes. He's back, don't worry. We had a blackout in Paul's in area rest. He's back. So, yeah, two games we're going to talk about. Both felt like losses, really. One definitely was a loss, and one was a win that felt like a loss. So, talk about Real Sociedad first. A bit of a weird one because he made a couple of bold selections from the start. Ten Hag, he put in Van der Beek and he put in Garnacho. One worked, one didn't. Then he made all the changes, which seemed terribly rushed. Even before the half-hour mark, he brings on McTominay and moves to a back three, which automatically lost all control of the game. We had control. 1-0, there was nothing to pick. It was like panic. And after that moment, 1-0, barely scraped through with that. It's a difficult one, Paul. I don't really know how to analyse this, and I've gone over it a couple of times because we weren't in any danger of ever going backwards and sort of losing the game. Or losing our position. We were never going to be worse than where we were when we started. So was it worth the gamble that early on? I just don't know what to make of it. It feels a little bit needless for me. It's the first time I've actually genuinely questioned the manager's decision in the middle of a game. What did you make of the Sociedad game?
I just wonder whether or not he done it just to find out a bit more what he has got and what he hasn't got, and what he can do and what he can't do in certain ways. Was it that reason when he wanted to look at other players and try different things to find out more about individuals when he's playing them and what they can and can't do, and when certain players aren't on the pitch, what are the other players like? For that reason, it might not be, but if it was any reason like that, then he found out that he needs to be playing his best players and his best players all the time, and that's what it matters. And if those players play over 40 games a season, well, so be it. And playing over 40 games a season, I don't think is a hardship really, as much as the way that everyone's been cloned to think that playing football is the toughest job in the world. It's not, because you're meant to be playing it with a smile in the face and enjoying the fact of that you're supposed to be doing what you love, and well rewarded for it. So I think that's the way it has to be. Manchester United they've got squad depth without a doubt, and they've got a lot of players who have cost money, big money, good money, earning good money. But when it comes to quality, they're not Man City. They're not even really Liverpool. Other people might mention, you look at them and you look at Arsenal's squad and you compare it to Manchester United. United should be at worst on the same par as Arsenal when you look at what they've got squad wise, because they're better than us. Their squad's better than Arsenal for what it's cost and what's there on paper, but it hasn't maybe got the same passion, desire, or desire everything that you need, or ambition what you need to compete at the top. And certain players just are not doing it, and he's tried it and it hasn't worked. And I think he must know now that he can't. There's certain players he can't believe in and use anymore. He just can't use them, and I think that come out in that game. And I think everyone's got their opinion now on what's going on, because they've seen majority of the players that they were calling for and asking him to try those players in this position, and I think he's virtually done that way, and if he's almost done that in a certain way, the way he's gone about it so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I mean, we'll talk about some of the players as we go along on the podcast. And that was a Sociedad game. We won 1-0. But we are still subjected to the playoff, which is going to be decided today. So we'll find out who we're going to be playing. Probably Barcelona, knowing United's way of doing things. But we'll talk about the game at Villa Park. If the Sociedad was a game that we felt like it was in our hands, the Villa Park game definitely was not. Paul, our last defeat there in the league was so long ago. You played in it largely yesterday. You know, we were talking about squad depth and everything like that, and we had this conversation last night, you and I, just very quickly talking about this exercising of the squad options that we've got. I mean, largely this season, we've, I think we've been very fair. We were critical last season of a lot of the defeats and the character that was shown in some of those defeats, but we've sort of like, I think, when you get a new manager and everyone's got a chance to sort of prove themselves. And we've been fair with. You said last week on the show, you know, Dallo, you were eating humble pie. I think we've both said the same kind of thing with Lindelof in the past, that he's come in and sort of done well. We've praised Shaw when he's improved. We've praised McTominay when he improved. Praised Fernandez. I know he wasn't involved yesterday. So a lot of the players that we've been critical of because of their underperformance, we've also praised this season when they've done well. I just think the honest truth is that if most of the team, if there'd been a complete change and all the players had been sold in the summer, nobody would really have been sad that a new squad was being used. So you have to praise the fact that some of those players have stepped up, because a lot of the team were written off. Now, the difficulty comes in not necessarily just games like yesterday, but games like yesterday are possible with the squad that we've got, right, Paul? I mean, the ceiling for some of these players are that they've stepped up to be good players in a team that are chasing the top four, but they won't be starters in a team that challenge for the title. And that's that might sound like I'm being negative towards the players, but I'm not really. I think that's their ceiling, and I think that they've done well to get that far, considering that most of them we could have said were surplus to requirements 3 or 4 months ago. To now say that they're in the team, they're in the squad, and they're actually putting a shift in. You know, you can't attribute yesterday's defeat to not putting a shift in. They just weren't good enough, which is concerning in itself. But I mean, that first half, the defensive performance, particularly the first couple of goals. Well, the free kick, all right, it's a strike. You can't do anything about that. You can criticise the goalkeeper, you can criticise the wall, but in the pattern of play, it's a free kick. It went in. The first goal, I mean, I don't even know. It was one of those where you look back to last season, and you think it's exactly the kind of goal we were conceding last season, and it sort of fell apart from there, didn't it?
It did. It just didn't. It's one of those games where you think, yeah, they're going. There's something about them. They're going to come out as Villa Park, a place where United generally go, and there's a good atmosphere, and there's always a buzz about the game. But there wasn't that usual buzz there, to be perfectly honest, especially from United players. It was very flat. They started badly. Martinez started very badly for him on two occasions, and where the goal come from was Bailey getting around the outside of him far too easy for the goal. The second opportunity, the second one, I'm surprised he didn't try and slide for the block. You could see the position that Bailey set himself. The only thing on for him was to strike, and that's where I thought Martinez, I should say, sorry, was should have put his leg, got a leg out, put a leg out or slid.
Yeah.
To try and block it, and he never done that. He didn't start right. He looked very say, I was going to use the word angry, but he plays it. He looked very stern yesterday in everything he'd done. He was very over aggressive. Should have been booked. Got
Yeah.
away. He got. I mean, it was the one that he done when he's thrown the elbow in on Bailey over the just at the byline, just in front of the United fans, and it was what it was, and he got away with that. And there's a few challenges where I thought Anthony Taylor has really kind of, don't know what's in there. He must have had a different chip in his head or something, because he wasn't the same Anthony Taylor I've seen on numerous occasions booked for the sake of booking. So he got away with it yesterday, and he didn't look himself for some reason. Dallo was. not his usual self in that sense going forward defensively. Luke Shaw was almost back to how he was previous and through that bad spell. Didn't want to run, didn't really want to defend. People got him behind him far too easy, and the midfield had no energy. And I was doing the commentary again, and I was saying, I thought it was blatantly obvious that he had to make a halftime change.
Yeah.
One of them was so obvious, but it was never going to happen. But the one he should have put straight away, and I hate saying this, but I was there the same as a lot of United fans. Feeling really sorry for Van der Beek. I wanted him to be given a good run to prove himself. Seen 2 games, and now I'm saying I just don't want him to play anymore because I just don't want him to go through that misery because he's not enjoyed himself. Very timid on 2 headers. I could use stronger words than that, but I call them two timid headers, which he just kind of went at them, and a little bit more aggression and belief. They could have been opportunities, but he should have come off, and Fred should have come on at half time.
Yeah.
To add energy, a bit of bite, just to get around to show enthusiasm. Somebody who enjoys playing when he gets the opportunity, and it needed that after half time, after getting that fortunate break from the shot from Luke Shaw, which was going wide. To get that just before, when things are awful, you think, right, this needs a buck up now. And I'm sure there was a lot of fans watching that going, got to change it now. Has to do something on the back of that good fortune just before half time. And you suddenly look, same players come out. You're on the pitch early. You think, okay, he goes out and speaks to them. You think, all right, he's getting his point across. He's getting in their heads again because he doesn't trust that they'll hold it in long enough. And then they go and start the second half worse than they started the first half. And it was terrible. Terrible. The possession, the slog of watching them pass the ball was terrible. Everything was a slog. You think to yourself, just knock it in the box, put me out of my misery, just knock it in the box and hope that Tyrone Mings is not going to head it again. But I hope someone else is going to head it different from him because no United player is going to head it. But just put it in the box because that slow, ponderous passing is opening up for a counter attack. And
Yeah.
I literally said that, and within 10 seconds, bang, it happens. It happens, and I could not believe what I was when that happened. It was absolutely incredible. It was everything that Manchester United have been bred on over the years, playing away from home, hitting teams when they do that, when they're stopping them. So you get them to pass the ball for the sake of passing because you're not leaving them anywhere to go. And then you hit them straight away on your counter with your big players, your big players, your big game players, and you go and kill the game off away from home 3-1. And the home fans are thinking this could be 5 or 6. And all of a sudden, it was roles reversed in the end. It's only because they haven't got the capabilities, Villa, to go on any further than what they really did. Otherwise, it could have been worse, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it was not great at all. And I think that's the thing, the disappointing thing, especially in the second half, was you saw a lot of that reverting to what we saw last season. And it's so disappointing considering that some of these players have stood up. In general, individually and collectively, they have stood up and they've improved this season so far. But it was like one or two players' heads were dropping. It wasn't quite working. So 7 or 8 players' heads were dropping. And it's like, it shouldn't happen like that. But it always seems to do with this United side. And I hope that that's one thing that Ten Hag looks at over the next week. I mean, the thing is, Paul, with you know what? I mean, we can argue whether or not he got it wrong with the selection again, especially Van der Beek playing. I mean, that's like you said, he just looks lost. Let's just touch on him a little bit more because people will be saying it should have been given more of a chance, and I think maybe earlier on, if he'd have been shown a little bit more faith and been given a little bit more game time, but at the same time, he's now being given game time under 2 or 3. I think he was given game time by Ragnick, but at least by 2 managers, and it's the same quandary as Paul Pogba, isn't it? Like what's his best position in midfield? And the midfielders are meant to be the most multi-talented, dynamic players that they can play in different positions. I remember back in the day, Any midfielder in Fergie's team would be. They could play on the right, they could play on the left. They often like moonlit at full as well as centre back. Sometimes they're meant to be the dynamic players who can play in different positions, and we've seem to have this problem. I'm saying Pogba and Van der Beek are the two obvious ones where you look at them and say, are they supposed to be midfielders? Where is it exactly where they're supposed to play? Why are they so poor at holding the ball and actually bossing a game? And I just look, it's difficult for him under Ten Hag. You would have presumed he's going to be getting more of a run. That hasn't happened. But if we're going to be fair, he's been at the club a couple of years and there hasn't been a good performance, really, a standout performance where you say, all right, he's really shown that he needs to be in the team.
No, there hasn't been. I wish I could say something really positive, but I can't. And I was working with an Evertonian yesterday, the commentator I was working with, and he said he'd done all right at Everton until he got injured. But my words to him was, well, doing all right for Everton, the levels that Everton were that season doesn't really say a lot. And he just nodded his head at me and agreed with me, really. So really don't know where to go. At this moment in time, all it done really, in theory, that game yesterday just made a stronger case for Fernandes, really.
Yeah,
That's what he done, and I get that, and I can understand that. He does bring what was missing yesterday. He does make the midfield more vibrant. He adds more energy. He definitely adds the opportunity of more creativity because of the way he plays the game, which sometimes is. Do you think yourself? You just need him to be a little bit more controlled, and a little bit more reserved in what he's going to do, and be more patient. But maybe he's the way he plays. He plays the game very dynamic, in a dynamic fashion, I should say, and maybe if that was there, that might have added some kind of spark to what was going on. That he's, I think myself, his frustration, he's throwing his arms up, and that might have done anything. Could have done something. Someone throwing a firework on a pitch might have done something to what was going on. It was just so flat, and we've seen him 2 games on the bounce make substitutions. One of them where he put Manchester United back on their heels, and then the one we saw against Real Sociedad, where he kind of took away everything that United had. Even though it didn't cause any great problems in conceding, it caused a problem in scoring the second goal, which was really the motive of the whole, what you wanted. Everyone wanted to think they wanted the second goal. They didn't want the extra 2 games that are coming up now, which are tough to fit in. But it just didn't. It just didn't seem right. And Fred was the obvious one. I've managed for a short space of time. I've been assistant manager for a short space of time, down in level 5, 6. But for me, and I've never been anywhere near that, or even claimed that I'd want to, or I could do the job. But it was obvious to me that you needed legs out there. If you'd brought out just, I don't know, anybody who could just run around, that would have made an effort. That would have got Villa thinking what's going to happen next. Villa didn't have to think. Didn't have to think about what was going to happen next, Wayne. On the right-hand side, Matty Cash had a problem with Garnacho. He had a problem, but Garnacho didn't have enough space to work in. He didn't have any space in behind to go try and push and go beyond him. And the box was so condensed around the box, so he couldn't manipulate him in and out, because if he went inside, he was stepping into players. On the other side, Marcus Rashford actually marked Digne. He marked him.
Yeah.
He never ran away from him at all. Now, I think I said this before, and every time, I'm going to add a bit more onto it. Marcus Rashford is, when Marcus Rashford scores a goal, I don't know if this is the media, well, it has to be in the media. When he scores a goal, all they want to say is he's on the plane to England. I'm sorry, on the plane going to play for England in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And when we see a performance like yesterday, they don't talk about him. No one's talking about England with him or anything. And that is the biggest problem. Marcus Rashford is only scoring goals. He's scoring goals. as we saw against West Ham, we've seen against Liverpool, we've seen against Arsenal, at the times that suit the people, the media, to throw him in there, to put Gareth Southgate under more pressure. His performance yesterday was poor. He was never in the game. And I'm saying this, and I must have said it before, but I say it to people when they come up, because a lot of people keep watching the telly and they believe what they see and hear. And I always say to them, I say, Marcus Rashford, sometimes you have to tell a player the truth. You have to tell them the truth. And that happened to me. A manager told me the truth, an assistant manager when I arrived at QPR told me the truth about me, what he saw as me as a player. He told me my strengths, and then he told me what he thought was my weakness. And he said that in front of the players. It was around. And did it hurt? Did it hurt? Not because in that way, because I didn't identify with I didn't identify, but because of he said it in front of other people.
Yeah.
And again, my way of dealing with that was I'm going to shove it straight back, straight back at you, straight up you. Really, that was my way. I didn't sulk about it, took it personally. And you can imagine the lads and things like that, but it's something I dealt with, back then when I was 23 years of age. And I think Marcus Rashford needs to be told his strengths and weaknesses. Marcus Rashford's great strength is that he's an incredible athlete. In today's football, you can say that and should not be taken personally, because that's what the game is. If you're an athlete, they can make you a footballer. If you're a great footballer, but you're not a great athlete, they cannot make you a great athlete.
Yeah.
And generally that's what everyone looks at. If he's a good athlete, can you make him a footballer? First player comes to my mind, Theo Walcott. Comes to my mind straight away. So I'm looking at Marcus Rashford. So my first thing is to Marcus Rashford, if you play more than 2 touch, that third touch has to be a shot or you got to pass it. Don't have any more.
Yeah.
When it comes to you playing, you're an instinctive player. 1 touch of control, deliver or shoot.
Yeah.
Cross or shoot. Do not go beyond that. If there's space behind and 1 player in front of you, push and run. If there's 2 players in front of you, your technique is not good enough to do that, to go past people when you don't have to.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. There's more you could add on to that, but I don't think anyone's telling him. When he had that spell, when he's scoring those goals, and that time he had, everything was in behind. As we see in the goals he scored, everything is bang, bang. It's not 3-4 beating 4 and 5. He tries beating 4 or 5 people, doesn't come off.
Yeah, it's true.
But you've seen it, and that's the way he is. But and that's what he does. So I don't understand it. Why United play this slow build-up when you got someone like him? Garnacho is exactly the same. I think he's better technically than Marcus Rashford. He could beat 2 or 3 players quite comfortably on and more often than Marcus Rashford. So if he's doing that, I would say there's more chance of an end product from it than him. And if it doesn't go his way, as we saw yesterday, when he gets beaten, someone takes off him, he'll fight to try and get the ball back. Marcus Rashford doesn't do that. He's just telling himself, unlucky, I've tried, it's all right. Everyone's saying I'm going to be the England squad, it's all right. And that's the way he's playing, and that's what football has become now at this moment in time. So Marcus Rashford needs to be told, the same as Sancho needs to be told as well, about his game and how he can get back to being a player which United overpaid for from Dortmund.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, Sancho didn't play yesterday. We'll talk about that front line then. I want to do that. Ben has put a good comment in. Morning, Ben. Hope you're doing well. Said, really, when you scrape below the surface, the squad depth is poor, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that. But let's talk about the front line. Ten Hag, I mean, yes, he got the combination wrong for sure because they seemed incompatible, but he does seem a little bit handcuffed with the front line, especially in terms of the injuries and illnesses. Sancho was ill. Anthony's got this knock. Martial only just back from injury and I think rushed into the squad because give him the benefit of the doubt. He looked rusty yesterday when he did come on. The combination there, Rashford on the right, is if he'd have been played on the right for years, for like 3 or 4 years, because he does occasionally have a good cross on him, but if he's doing that in that position where he's always there, then that would have been developed. He doesn't always play there, so you don't have that in him. And like I said, that you put a player out of position, especially when they're not, when the strength isn't in economizing with the ball, then they are prone to be taking too many touches that they don't need. Then you've got Ronaldo in the middle. I mean, the decline is obvious at this point, and then a young rookie on the left-hand side, Garnacho, with a left back who is so hit and miss behind him that it's difficult for a young player like that to really. I mean, he's only really got to concentrate on his own game, and you can't be lumbered with the responsibility of looking after Luke Shaw being out of position. So nobody's going to criticise Garnacho for not tracking back in his first few games. You're going to say you just want him to concentrate on doing the thing, and he's been one of the better performers for United. But that front line is very difficult. We've already talked about Rashford. I just want to talk about Ronaldo, not so much in the performance. We know it was poor. The captaincy. I can only presume, Paul, it's for good behaviour. I'm being facetious there. If it's not quite obvious for the listeners, but they were talking about the other alternatives. I mean, we are obviously down the line. Maguire's out of the side. Fernandes, who was the stand-in, wasn't there. So Ronaldo's the next sort of senior player. I mean, the obvious alternative would have been De Gea. I don't think there's any harm in De Gea captaining the side. Martinez was even mentioned as a potential candidate. I think, it was obviously a statement kind of thing, Ronaldo being the senior player, but should have. Does it matter? I think it should have gone to De Gea. Does it really matter? It doesn't look great when he's the sort of, after everything that he's done this season, and the fact that Ten Hag did take him out of the side for a game or two. He's back in. He's captain. It's not really a strong message of discipline, is it? It looks a little bit weak on today.
It does. I never really understood about captaincy until I come to Manchester United. Really, maybe I should have understood it while I was with England, but I really got it, the importance of it, when I turned up United and I saw Robbo, and when I turned up how he was, about him and what a captaincy was really about, and initially I just thought it was just about running the team out on Saturday at 3:00 or a Tuesday or Wednesday night at 7:30 or 7:45. Did you see what I've done now? I said Saturday at 3:00. That's what it was back in the day, and it was Tuesday and Wednesday, 7:30 or 7:45, not 8:00 or 8:15. But that's what I thought it was. And then you finish, you would go and sort out a few issues if there was with the players bar after, about getting people in and things. That's what I thought captaincy was about. I never realised that what a big onus there was on you with sorting things out for players. The players would come to you with problems. Players would look at you and respect everything about you and expect you to be the principal person about everything, about taking control of things off the park, and didn't really get all that until I joined Manchester United. So after all that, when you've seen that Big Pete's been captain and what he achieved at Manchester United, you think, okay, Brucey, yep. Then you look at Keano, you think, yep. And then you looked at Gary Neville, you went, yep, okay. I looked at Ashley Young, I went, nope. And then I see what's going on now. Obviously, with Harry Maguire, I'm kind of going, nope. Wasn't embedded in a club long enough. And then the person who's embedded in a club more than anybody, and the only person in that within the team, I think at this moment in time, who's won the Premier League for the team, for Manchester United, if that's correct. Yeah. I don't think there's anybody else. It's David De Gea. I did read that Ten Hag talked about a goalkeeper being his captain. Well, sorry, it was only for one game. Fernandes is back, if anything, for the next game. But it's one game, and it was just, and if it's about for that one game, not to allow somebody who left his workmates in the lurch at a big moment at that time, then it's got to be that person who you think shouldn't have the job, but maybe 90 minutes isn't bad. So he walked away. Let's put it this way: if you're working in a factory and you're on a conveyor belt, and to everyone to get there to be able to feed their family, you have to finish off something. And he decides that he's upset with someone at the top, and he walks off and leaves them, and they can't finish the job. There you are. You know what happens then? And then when he decides to come back, and all of a sudden he gets invited up for a cup of tea, and a few biscuits with the bosses. Is that all right as well for them to see that? No, it's not. For him to lead the team out and have to go to battle, and especially when you start badly, you're looking for someone to boost you, to get you going, and you can look at him and go, yeah, he's not the person. So that was a poor start. And I said Birchie's something like that yesterday as well. And that was terrible on his part. And I think there'll be a lot of players there. And if there isn't a lot of players within that, the majority of those players who weren't thinking what I've just come out and said, that tells you how bad things are in football. If they think it's okay just to accept that and not be bothered. And you should be bothered. You have to be bothered about a situation, because when you talk about at the moment, I'm looking around and I'm seeing everybody want to put things out, all these great things about him. Look, he's doing this and look, he's doing that. The most important bit for him is for his teammates, to be doing the right thing for them.
Yeah.
Because it's all public. And for him to be given captain, and 2 weeks ago or so, and people are seeing him storm off down the tunnel, and then there'll be kids watching thinking, oh, right, okay. And while he's doing all these other nice things and that, when it suits, but when it really matters, when it should suit to the people he works with day in, day out, it doesn't make sense. And he was happy to accept that armband without thinking what he's done before. Now, that doesn't, if he turned around and said, no, it shouldn't be me, then great. And there's a great story to talk about. But to take it on, and then you watch the way he conducts himself on the pitch, and as you said at the top of all this, his frustration with himself because he can't do it no more. I get fed up with people say to me about even myself, and this ain't me blowing my own trumpet, say to me, cool, blimey, Paul, you haven't changed. I go, well, yeah, I've got no hair now, and but you still look the same. I kind of go, well, I've got an ego. I can't afford to be fat at my height. It looks silly. So I kind of try and do my best by trying to go to the gym every single day. If I can just get myself out of bed and things like that, and just to go early. Because if I go later on the day, I'm not going to go. So they go, cool. And I go, you don't look good. 58, you look absolutely incredible. And if I was to play a game against 58-year-olds, I think myself, I could have a right go here. People 55 think, okay. But when Ronaldo comes up against a half average footballer who's 17 to 27 to 28, they're going to be sharper. They're going to be agile. They're going to want to prove a point against him. So generally, it isn't going to work. It isn't going to work, especially when you're not in the same. When you think about, he's not a Teddy Sheringham. When you think about him as a footballer, Teddy Sheringham, when he was playing, even up until he retired, he was a thinking player. That bit was sharp. Never put himself in vulnerable areas. And Teddy was a much better footballer at that age.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Much better. Ronaldo he's had to work hard to become a footballer. Teddy was born a footballer, grew up in the streets playing football. As the majority of players in my area, we all played parks, and we learned everything, improvisation, things, everything was off streets, natural ability, and it was built on, it was enhanced. Ronaldo was built into a footballer, and there's the difference as you get older, that you need that little bit, and he hasn't got it. So as great as that, he's got a six-pack is fantastic. Six-pack doesn't make you a better footballer, and having a great body shape for your age and how you eat the right things doesn't make you a good footballer. As Harry Redknapp once said, a bowl of pasta is not going to win you a game of football. And it's as simple as that.
No, yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it is, his decline. It's not great to see, and the captaincy thing was. I mean, it's just all indicative of just like a week where, it's, for the first time. For the first time, I'm going to be fair. I'm not jumping on the manager's back. Still heavily back him. I think he's doing a really good job. He's definitely allowed one or two bad decisions while he's sort of navigating the mire of what the squad is, especially when he's got suspensions and injuries. I mean, it's not just Fernandez being suspended. Martial's been injured. Sancho's out injured. Anthony's injured. Varane's injured. So there's a lot of different.
Right, yeah, there is a lot of injuries. Let me just say, Varane being injured, that's an issue. Anthony being injured, that's an issue. The others that you mentioned are not really issues. Martial, I don't know if he really wants to play. Really don't know if he wants to play. He come off the bench. City should have been stronger there, taken off Ronaldo, put him there where he, in the moment where he thinks Martial can be a strength to the team. Put him through the middle, even though you think the game's dead. Try him there, just to check out. First of all, does he want to do the job? Has he got an appetite to want to do the job there, Martial? No, he doesn't. He puts him in a number 10 role where it's not going to work there, unless he's playing in that role as a centre forward and he drops off, and then you think to yourself, okay. And then you talk about Sancho, hasn't done it. Him being that ill or not being that way doesn't make a difference at this moment in time. So all it does, it allows him, Sancho being out, it allows him to bring in a younger player, someone who wants to prove a point on that bench.
No, yeah, I get what I mean is the difference is like you bringing on an Alanga who is just the standards not there, and that there are complications in terms of like how he would construct that forward line, and you dead right in all that. And I think the curious thing to me is that he makes a gamble on Thursday night where he puts Maguire on the left wing and up front for 10 minutes, but he doesn't make. Like you said, he puts Martial at number 10. Just play the 4-4-2 at that point. We're 2 goals down. There's not, change the system. Try something different like you did on Thursday night. That's the time for the gamble. We're 2 goals behind. But it does lead into. So we'll talk about the next games in a moment then, because it leads into that. It's kind of convenient in a way that Villa are the next opponent. We're playing them in the League Cup. There's 2 games left before the World Cup, so one of these is in a competition, a cup competition, and one's in the league. And you might say, "Oh, the League Cup, well, it's just a cup competition that we don't need." But he does need it now, doesn't he? Like he can't. You're not going to be able to take anything for granted. No competition. And to be fair, I don't think he has done. He's played a very strong side in all of the games in which he's played so far. It's his first League Cup game. He might make 1 or 2 changes in there, but the pressure's on him now. I'm not saying the pressure's on him. He's got to make a right decision, but because he's made a couple of bad decisions in his selection, he's got to get it right with this. He's got to send a message. It's got to be a message from the team, but also from Ten Hag as well, hasn't it? On the League Cup game against Villa.
Yeah, I mean he has to. He's got to do it. And whatever's left, the game's left. There's no point in thinking about resting people or anything like that. Got to play the games and got to win both of them. Has to win the League Cup game. Definitely has to win the League Cup game. And as much as some of these players thought, oh, they might have time off, but the important ones, he can't leave them out. He can leave Ronaldo out. Martial can start the game because it's pointless. It's a pointless exercise. Doing what he's trying to do with that situation, and go for it and try and win the game. He has to start that game, maybe like Villa started the game, and go and score an early goal, just to get the fans on side, because the fans are going to be turned up, a lot of them, and they're going to be waiting there for something, just that moment, that lapse, that kind of negativity, that poor, giving away the ball cheaply, and it's going to turn it into not a good toxic, maybe a semi-toxic atmosphere. That's what it could do after what's happened at the weekend, and even that Sociedad game in a certain way, even though they won it, people are still off the back of that. So it needs to improve, and then to go in the final game of the season against Fulham, where Fulham is going to be such a tough game.
They've been so good, haven't they? Since
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really tough game, that one. So he needs, again, the right players on that pitch. And he needs to prepare them. He needs to get in the heads. And there's no point, oh, have a rest. We've got a big game at the weekend. Forget about that, because a lot of them are not, a lot of them are still going to be around. And, so, and the most important thing is the game for Manchester United. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing, is to get as many points before, and 3 points is needed at the weekend. Fulham are going to want to end their first half of the season with a win, because that would make it a great start to a fantastic start to the Premier League season for Fulham if they can finish it with an extra 3 points in the bag and getting those 3 points by beating Manchester United. The Fulham fans would call that's them winning the league if they go and do that. The way they've started and finish off beating Manchester United, that is it. That's the way they are. That's what they're thinking about that game. So
Um,
it's really important for him to get this next bit right.
Yeah, and Mitrovic has been in outstanding form as well. The kind of striker who's going to relish going up against Lindelof, isn't he? He's going to look at him and say, "I want you for breakfast, mate."
Yeah, but he didn't play at the weekend, so I just wonder. I just wonder where he is at this moment in time. Was the manager looking at something different? I don't know. Be interesting if he's there. But yeah, you are right about that. But when you play up against someone like a Mitrovic, if the answer is to be aggressive with him, if you think the answer is to be aggressive with him, then you're not really the cleverest person in the world. If you do that, you have to box clever with him. You have to play with that and nick it off his toe. Play in front of him. Don't let him turn. When you get in the box with him, you don't let him jump. You don't necessarily have to win the ball in the box, but you just try and make it as difficult as possible for him. So it'd be interesting if the player that he is, he'll try and go up against Lindelof. Um, if Ten Hag was to think, oh, I'll bring back Harry Maguire for this one because I can put him up against Mitrovic, then that doesn't make any difference at all. Because Harry Maguire can only play one way, and he can try and win the ball maybe too much, and Mitrovic will be too clever for him. That's
Yeah,
what he's all about. And so it's it. This is it's ridiculous, really, that I'm saying this. I don't think a lot of people think I am, but Fulham is a serious, tough game. It's not what they need as their next game in the Premier League is going away to Fulham, because there'll be a packed house as it can be, even though not all the stand is open at this new stand is open at this moment in time. But pre Christmas and their last game, it is going to be a battle.
yeah, two massive tests for United and for Ten Hag. He's got some questions to answer, and hopefully he'll provide the right answers. We will be back next week to talk about those answers for sure. If you've enjoyed the pod, please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and other video platforms. And if you've listened back on the audio podcast, please subscribe and give us a review on the platform you're listening on. We'll be back to talk about the games against Villa and Fulham. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you soon.